Extreme slow motion shot of fine, golden sand falling in a perfectly steady stream. It piles into a smooth mound. The camera is so close, each grain is visible. The only sound is a deep, resonant, and incredibly low-frequency ambient drone, like the hum of the earth itself. After a full minute, a single hieroglyph, the Ankh, is gently traced onto the mound's surface by an unseen hand. It holds for a moment before vanishing, erased by the endless flow. Narrator's voice, a calm, measured, sonorous male voice. Pace is slow, with long, deliberate pauses. Each sentence is given space to breathe and dissolve into the soundscape. To sleep, is to cross a threshold not unlike the carved stone gateway of a vanished temple. The lintel above you is heavy with the weight of centuries. The space within is dark, cool, and silent. You step across, and the world outside, the world of seconds and minutes and frantic thought, it fades. Its sounds become distant, like the wind over the dunes at night. And in that inner chamber of the mind, an older language begins to stir. Not a language of words, but of symbols. Of images that rise from the deep silt of memory, like fragments of a dream. A boat on a still river. A bird in flight, frozen against a lapis lazuli sky. A single, watchful eye. Tonight, we do not merely study the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt. We will, very slowly, and very quietly, attempt to listen to them. To let their shapes, their silent sounds, lull the analytical mind to rest. To see if we can hear, in the space between their lines, the eternal whisper they called, Medu Neter, the words of the gods. This is not a lecture to be remembered. It is a recitation, to be forgotten. Let the facts drift, like papyrus ash on the Nile. Let the dates dissolve, like salt in temple wine. We are not here to learn, but to remember a dream the world once had. A dream in stone and ink. So, find your rest. Let your gaze grow soft. And allow your breath to fall into rhythm with the slow, the patient, the endless flow of sand. Visual. The sand pile dissolves into a starfield. The stars are not white, but deep gold. They slowly morph, connecting into the constellations as the ancient Egyptians saw them. The Mesachtiu, the bull's thigh, our Big Dipper, the seated god saw Orion. The camera drifts through them, impossibly slow. Sound. The deep drone is joined by a very subtle, echoing pluck of a lyre string, repeating at irregular, languid intervals. Part 1. The fabric of meaning, stone, symbol, and silence. Our story begins, not with a king, but with a crack. A hairline fracture in a potsherd, discarded in the pre-dawn gray of a pre-dynastic village. A humble thing. Upon it, a hand, guided by a mind swimming with the immediacy of life and death, the hunt, the flood, the grain, made a mark. A simple tally of goats. A sign for water. A name. This urge to make a mark, to say, I was here, or, this is mine, or, beware, is the first tremor of writing. But the Egyptians, they did something profound. They did not let the symbol shrink into a mere letter, a efficient, abstract tick. They let it expand. They let it breathe. They allowed the image to retain its soul. Consider the word, for, face. Visual. The hieroglyph for, face, a simple side view outline, appears, glowing faintly gold against black. It does not flash. It blooms into view, then holds. It is a picture, of a face. To write, face, you draw a face. There is a deep, childlike logic to this. A holy simplicity. The thing, is the word. The word, contains the thing. But then, consider the word for, statue. Visual. The hieroglyph for, statue, a seated god figure, appears beside the, face. It is the sign, for a seated god, for a statue is a god, made still. Made available. The stone is not a representation, it is a vessel. A house for the divine. So the word itself, is a tiny house. This is the first principle, the first gentle wave in this sea of symbols. Representation is reality. To depict a thing, was to invoke its essence. To carve a bull on a temple wall was not decoration, it was to harness the bull's strength, its fertility, for eternity. To write the king's name inside a cartouche, a coiled rope, was not a frame. It was a protective barrier, sealing his identity, his very Ren, from the chaos of non-existence. Seconds of only ambient sound and the slow drift of stars turning into slow, flowing water. This leads us to the second principle, a shadow to the first, the power of omission. What they chose not to write, was as potent as what they did. There is no hieroglyph, for, accident. No sign for, random chance. In their cosmos, a universe sung into being by the first word of autumn. Everything had a cause. A purpose. A willful actor, be it God, spirit, or human. A dropped pot was the nudge of a mischievous asterisk aka spirit. A sudden wind, the breath of Shu. To write of chaos, was to give it a shape, and thus, power. So they built their written world, as they built their tombs, orderly, purposeful, defended against the formless void. And so, their script became a sacred architecture. A fortified city of meaning. Each sign, a brick. Each line of text, a wall against oblivion. Visual, a wall of the pyramid texts materializes. The camera moves along it at a glacial pace, the raised relief hieroglyphs casting long, dramatic shadows. The narrator's voice seems to almost whisper, blending with the sound. Listen to the sounds of this fortress. The rustle of papyrus, unrolled in a dim temple scriptorium. The scent of ink, soot from burnt temple offerings, mixed with gum from the acacia tree. The scratch 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 of the reed brush, a sound like a persistent insect in the hot afternoon. The tap 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 of the sculpture's copper chisel on limestone, each tap a tiny, decisive prayer. This was the soundscape, in which eternity was drafted. Sound, the layered sounds described, papyrus rustle, ink grinding, chisel tap, are woven into the music, but at such a low, muffled volume they are almost subliminal. Art 2, the dreamers within the machine, the scribe, the stone, and the sleep of death. Who were the custodians of this silent, potent dream? They were the sesh, the scribes, the men of the roll. They did not see themselves as writers, but as pilots, navigators of the cosmic river. Their pen was a reed raft, their ink, the black, fertile soil of the inundation itself. Visual, a slowly animated, stylized line drawing of a scribe, based on tomb paintings. He sits cross-legged. His hand moves with infinite slowness, a single drop of ink falling from his brush in a 30-second arc. Their training was a form of gentle hypnosis. Endless repetition, copying the same maxims, the same hymns, until the hand moved without the mind. Until the signs flowed like the Nile, predictable, life-giving, eternal. Be a scribe, the school texts implore. Your limbs will be smooth, your hand will be soft. You will not be like a hired ox. You will be dressed in fine linen. You will be, a part, a conduit. And what did they inscribe? Not just tax records and royal decrees, though those too were sacred. They wrote the spells that would become the air, the water, the food, for the dead. Here, we find the deepest sleep of all. The Ket, the physical body, lies still in its decorated box. But the Ba, the personality, the spark, often shown as a human-headed bird, it flutters. It wishes to be free, too. Travel with the sun bark. But it must, each dawn, return to the Ket. It must recognize it, and the Ka, the vital force, the double, it remains in the tomb, sustained by offerings and, by the words. Visual, a beautiful, simple animation of the Ba bird flying through a starry night, its wings beating in slow motion. It descends towards a tomb entrance, glowing with soft light. The hieroglyphs on the coffin, on the tomb walls, were not literature. They were utterances, they were equipment, a ladder to climb, a boat to sail, a spell to make the hard not testify against you in the hall of Ma'at. They were the script, for the most important journey the soul would ever take. A journey into the asterisk duat, the realm of night, of sleep, of gestation and renewal. To read them aloud, though they were often never meant to be read by mortal eyes again, was to activate them. The breath gave them life. The sound vibration, woke the magic. So imagine, the profound silence of a sealed burial chamber. The air still and dead for 3,000 years. And on every surface, covering every inch, a chorus of voices frozen in stone. A deafening, silent, scream of prayers for survival. All waiting for a breath that will never come. The visual is a static, wide shot of a sealed sarcophagus in a dark chamber. A single shaft of dusty light cuts across it. The ambient sound drops to near silence, only a faint, almost inaudible ringing remains. This is the paradox of the hieroglyph. It is a thing of immense, thunderous power, residing in absolute, desert silence. It is a shout, etched into a whisper. The fading and the whisper, from forgetting to eternity. For nearly 3,500 years, the script worked. It named the gods, it fed the kings, it defended the dead, and then, the world changed. The Persians came, then the Greeks. Alexander slept in the temple of the oracle at Siwa. The Ptolemies ruled from Alexandria, a city of a different light. The hieroglyphs grew stiff, ornate, a language of the priests alone, clinging to the cold stone of temples while the world spoke Greek. Then, Rome. Augustus had his image carved on Egyptian temple walls in the traditional style, but it was a costume. A hollow performance. The last known hieroglyphic inscription was carved at the Temple of Philae, in the year 394 of our Common Era. A simple graffito. A final, fading, mark. Visual. The Philae inscription. The camera rests on it. The light on it very slowly dims, as if over centuries, until it is barely visible. The knowledge of how to read them, how to listen to them, seeped into the sand. The words of the gods fell silent. Egypt became a land of mute giants. Obelisks that spoke an unknown tongue. Papyri that crumbled to dust at the touch. The dream was forgotten. For over 1,000 years, they were just pictures. Curiosities. Hieroglyphica. Sacred carvings. Their meaning was guessed at, imagined to be a secret, magical code for alchemists and mystics. Intel. A stone. A dark, gray granodiorite slab, pulled from the mud of the Rosetta branch. Inscribed with a mundane priestly decree, in 3 scripts, the elegant, cryptic hieroglyphs, the flowing, everyday demotic, and the plain, administrative Greek. It was not a key suddenly turned. It was a slow, patient, unfolding. A unraveling of a knot that had tightened for millennia. Young Champollion, feverish, brilliant, comparing the royal names, Ptolemy, Cleopatra, seeing the phonetic clues in the cartouches. The moment of breakthrough, not a shout, but a slow, dawning whisper. Je tiens mon affaire, I've got it. The silence was broken. Visual. No dramatic recreations. Instead, a slow, close-up scan of the Rosetta Stone itself, focusing on the rough, granular texture of the stone, the chips, the wear. The 3 scripts slide by, one after the other. And what did we hear, when we learned to listen again? We heard the buzzing of bureaucracy. The boasting of kings. The meticulous lists of offerings. We heard love poems, and medical texts for intestinal worms. We heard the fears, and the hopes, of people who laughed, loved, and dreaded death, just as we do. The magic did not vanish in the translation. It transformed. It became human closing. Visual. Returns to the falling sand. The stream is slower now. The mound is nearly gone. So, as you drift now, between waking and sleeping, think not of decipherment. Think not of grammar or vocabulary. Think of the hand that carved. The mind that believed a carved owl could summon the concept of majesty. The hope that a painted loaf of bread could feed a soul for 10,000 years. The hieroglyphs were their attempt to stop time. To make the temporary, permanent. To make silence, speak. And in a way, they succeeded. For here we are, centuries upon centuries later, in the dark, letting their ancient, pictorial thoughts, guide us gently toward the very state they sought to conquer, sleep. The little brother of death. The sand returns. The symbols fade. The whisper becomes one with the wind, over the dunes, under the cold, the constant, the indifferent, stars. Let it go. Let it all go. The past is ever present. And it is, finally, time to rest. Visual. The last grain of sand falls. The screen is pure, soft black. The ambient sound fades over 60 seconds to total silence. End of script. Scene start. Visual. The pure, soft black screen holds for a full 90 seconds. No sound, no text, just the void, inviting the viewer to linger in the state between stories. Then, as if a single lamp is lit in a vast library, a soft, circular pool of warm light fades in at the center of the screen. Within it, we see the texture of aged papyrus, fibrous, golden brown, cracked. A single, perfect, black ink hieroglyph begins to form, not by a hand, but as if emerging from the papyrus itself, the jade pillar, symbol of stability and the backbone of Osiris. It holds, stark and silent. Narrator's voice even softer now, a whisper that seems to originate from just behind the listener's ear. Stability is a myth woven by the waking mind. The river floods, and recedes. The kingdom rises, and falls. The sun itself is swallowed each night by the goddess Nut, and reborn each morning from her womb. All is flow, all is cycle, the only true, jade, the only spine that does not bend, is the eternal recurrence of change. And so, the ancient scribes, in their profound wisdom, did not only build fortresses of stone with their words. They also mapped the river. They charted the gentle, inevitable drift from one state of being to another. From life to death, to life again. From waking to dreaming, to the dreamless dark, and back to the dawn. Tonight, let us follow one such map. Not carved in a royal tomb, but found in a simpler place. The coffin of a man named Meshach, a minor priest of Amun, a man whose name means, birthed at dawn. Visual, the jade pillar dissolves. The pool of light expands slowly, revealing more of the papyrus. It is a section from the Book of the Dead, chapter 17, perhaps. The hieroglyphs are crisp, the illustrations vivid. A boat, a serpent, a goddess with outstretched wings. The camera begins a lateral drift, so slow it is almost imperceptible, along a line of text. We join Meshach's Ba, his journeying soul, not at the moment of death, but in the moment of its first, confused, awakening within the asterisk duat. The realm of twilight, he finds himself, in a field of reeds. But, these reeds are not green. They are the color of tarnished silver, and they make no sound in the still air. A mist hugs the black water that winds through them. He is in a boat. But there is no oar. His only possession, is this text. These words, painted in mineral pigments upon the linen that wrapped his still heart. They are his instructions, but they are not commands. They are suggestions, possibilities, like remembering the rules of a game you played as a child. The first spell is for not dying again. A plea to Osiris, may I be granted a path that I may walk upon it, in the field of rushes, may I eat there, may I drink there, may I plow there, may I reap there. It is a shock, is it not? The afterlife, imagined not as endless hymns on a cloud, but as the simple, eternal repetition of a good day's work on fertile land. The ultimate nostalgia. The deepest sleep is not emptiness, it is the comfort of a perfectly familiar routine, forever. Sound. A new layer in the soundscape, the faint, far-off cry of a heron. The gentle, liquid lap of water against papyrus reeds. These sounds are so distant, they feel remembered rather than heard. But the path is not simple. The map warns of obstacles. Visual. The papyrus scroll continues. The illustration shifts. Now we see the demon of the second hour, a composite beast with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, the Amit, the devourer of the dead. But the drawing is not fearsome. It is stylized, almost sleepy itself. Here, the text changes tone. It is no longer a request. It is a statement of identity. A mantra for the dreaming soul to repeat. I am the lotus that rose from the nun, I am the pure one who issued from the delta, I am yesterday, and I know tomorrow. Do you hear the strategy? To face the demon, Meshach does not reach for a weapon. He recites his connection to the cosmos. He asserts his participation in the eternal cycle. He says, in essence, I am not a transient event. I am a feature of the universe itself. You cannot consume what is already part of the great pattern. Asterisk. The demon is not slain. It is bypassed by truth, by memory. This is the true function of their sacred script. It was a cognitive tool, a series of psychic bypasses around the monsters of doubt, of fear, of annihilation. To inscribe the spell was to build the bypass in advance. To sleep was to travel it. Long pause 45 seconds. The visual holds on the sleeping Amit. The only movement is a slight shimmer on the black water of the illustration. The journey through the 12 hours of the night is long. It is a descent, and an unraveling. Meshach's Ba encounters gates with fiery hinges, guarded by gods whose names must be spoken in just the right tone of voice. He must know the name of the door itself, and the name of the bolt. He must declare himself to be the son of various primeval forces. He is disassembled. His identity, so fixed in life, a priest, a father, a farmer of a small plot, is gently taken apart. His heart is weighed. His deeds are measured not against a perfect standard, but against the feather of asterisk Ma'at, the fundamental order of the cosmos. Is he in harmony, or is he dissonance? This weighing is the central sleep paralysis of the soul. The moment of absolute vulnerability. The moment where the dream could tip into nightmare. Visual. The scene of the weighing of the heart. Anubis, poised, adjusting the scale. The heart on one dish, the feather on the other. Thoth, ibis-headed, ready to record. It is a still image, but the camera focuses on the balance beam. It is perfectly level. And here, the most beautiful spell of all. The one modern Egyptologists call the negative confession. It is not a confession of sins. It is a recitation of sins not committed. I have not caused pain. I have not caused tears. I have not stolen. I have not lied. I have not made anyone hungry. I have not stopped the flow of water. It is a litany of absences. A definition of the self, by what it has refused to do, by the chaos it has chosen not to introduce into the world. It is the ultimate lullaby for a guilty conscience. To recite it is to assert one's fundamental innocence, not because you were perfect, but because your will was aligned with the gentle, nourishing flow of Ma'at. And if the heart balances, if the feather does not stir, visual, the balanced scale dissolves into a shot of a lush, green field, shimmering in a golden, eternal late afternoon light. The water is clear, the wheat is tall, it is utterly peaceful, and utterly still. Then, Meshach is led by Horus, into the presence of Osiris, the green-skinned god, lord of the quiet dead. And he is given his place. The script resumes from the field of soft, granular gray, the space behind closed eyelids. The narration does not return with a start, but with the gentleness of a half-formed dream. Scene start. Visual. The granular gray begins to coalesce. It is not forming an image, but a sensation of depth. It becomes a vast, shallow sea of undulating fog, lit by no discernible source. It is the Nun, the primordial waters before creation. From its surface, no land rises. Instead, after a long moment, a single, perfect bubble forms. It swells, silver and fragile, reflects nothing, and holds, trembling, at the point of release. Narrator's voice. The voice is no longer a guide. It is the echo of the listener's own internal monologue, slow and viscous. Before the names of gods, there was this. The breath, held, the potential, of a word not yet spoken. The Egyptians did not begin their story with a bang, or a flash of light. They began it with a stillness so complete, it contained everything. The Nun, the dark, watery, indifferentiated all. And from it, not a command, but a wanting. A yearning toward form. The first god, Autumn, emerged not by being made, but by becoming aware of himself. His first act was not to speak, but to exhale. And with that exhale, he spoke his own name. And the universe, was a verb. This, is the secret hidden within every sleeping breath. The microcosm of cosmogony. In the hollow between the inhale and the exhale, there is the Nun. In the sigh that follows, there is the spoken name. The birth of a world. Your world. The private universe of the night. We have moved from the tomb, to the body, to the breath itself. To the source of all their spells. Visual. The bubble releases. It does not pop. It simply dissolves back into the fog. From the point where it was, a single, straight line is drawn in light across the dark waters. It is the first mound. The Ben stone, the place where the first light struck. It is not grand, it is a geometry of emergence. All their magic, their Heka, was based on this principle, that the spoken word has creative power. That sound shapes reality, but to speak a spell, one must first have breath. And to have breath, one must be alive. And to be alive, is to be constantly cycling between the creative exhale and the receptive inhale. Sleep, is when the speaking stops. When the conscious Heka of the day, the commands, the conversations, the prayers, falls silent. What, then, governs the night? The Ren, the true name, not the name you are given, but the name you are. The secret, sonic fingerprint of your essence. The Egyptians believed knowing the true name of a god, a demon, a person, gave you power over it. To know the Ren was to hold its heart in your hand. Your Ren was so vital, it had to be hidden. Repeated often in life to keep it strong, but guarded fiercely from malicious magic. And in death, it was your passport. But what happens to the Ren, in sleep? It drifts, unspoken, unprotected, a silent, glowing ember in the cavern of the chest. This is the vulnerability of the sleeper. The reason for the amulets, the spells, the wrappings. They were a fortress built around the silent Ren. A lighthouse for the essence, so it would not get lost in the fog of the duat and forget how to return to the body at dawn. Sound, a new element, a deep, resonant, vowel-less tone. It is the sound of a Tibetan singing bowl heard from a mile away. It is not a melody. It is a foundational vibration. It persists underneath everything. So let us now consider, the guardians of this silent name. Not the jackal-headed Anubis, but the gentler, more pervasive ones. The household gods, the *B's figures, carved on headrests. The dwarf god with his leonine face, tongue protruding, dancing to drive away gloom. He did not guard palaces. He guarded bedrooms, nurseries, the threshold of dreams. His grotesque face was a mirror to the formlessness of nightmare, a face so confronting, it scared away lesser fears. And the goddess Taweret, the hippopotamus with pendulous human breasts, standing upright with the paws of a lion and the back of a crocodile. A composite of the most dangerous creatures of the Nile, transformed into the ultimate protector of mothers and newborns. She stood guard over the transition into life, and by extension, over every vulnerable, creative, unconscious state. She was the embodied spirit of fierce, nurturing, amniotic darkness. Visual. A simple, carved figurine of bees appears, floating in the gray fog. It rotates with infinite slowness. Then, a figurine of Taweret appears beside it. They are not fearsome, they look worn, smooth from countless touches in the dark. These were the deities of the liminal. The gods of the in-between. The headrest was not just a piece of furniture. It was an altar, a stone or wooden curve that cradled the silent wren a few inches above the chaos of the floor. To lie down was to place your essence in their care. Tonight, you have no carved headrest. But you have the pillow. And the darkness itself, is Taweret. It may seem formless, threatening, full of unseen shapes. But its nature is to hold you. To allow the fragile, creative, dreaming thing within you to exist, unmolested. The chaos is not there to consume you. It is there to be your shield. The crocodile's back is armored to turn away spears, so your softness can safely rest against it. Embrace the formless dark, as a protector. Not as a void. The visual holds on the two figurines. They begin to slowly fade, not to black, but to become even less distinct, blending into the background fog. Now, the final turn of the key. We have spoken of the journey out, of the soul's navigation, but what of the return? The Egyptians feared the second death, in the afterlife, true, final annihilation. But they equally feared, not waking up, the failure of the Ba to reunite with the Ket, to be forever a wandering ghost, a hungry shadow. The most important spell was the one for opening the mouth. Upon completion of the mummy, before sealing the tomb, a priest would perform a ritual. With a sacred adze, he would touch the mouth, the eyes, the ears, the nose of the statue, and of the mummy itself. He would say, "You are not dead. You are alive. You have your mouth to eat with, your eyes to see with, your ears to hear with, your nose to breathe with." It was not a metaphor. It was an activation, a booting up of the system for the next world. But consider this ritual, at dawn. Every morning, as the light pierced the horizon, it was believed the same thing happened to the world. The god's mouth was opened. The senses of the cosmos were restored. The night, the asterisk duat, released its grip. And in your own, small, dark chamber, as the first faint gray light seeps around the edge of the curtain, a silent, internal priest performs the same ritual. The adze of waking consciousness touches your closed eyelids. You have your eyes to see with. It touches your still lungs. You have your nose to breathe with. It touches the silence in your ears. You have your ears to hear the birds. It touches the dream-sealed lips. You have your mouth to speak your name. Asterisk. The return is a resurrection. Minor, daily, unremarkable, and yet, it is the entire point of the elaborate system. The preservation, the spells, the maps, all of it was to ensure this fragile, daily miracle could continue, in some form, forever. To make sure the name, the wren, would always have a mouth to speak it. Visual. The fog begins, with infinite gentleness, to brighten. It is not a sunrise. It is a diffusion, a softening of the gray into a warmer, pearlescent tone. No sun appears, just the quality of the emptiness changes, promising light. So, as you linger here, in the deepest part of the night, you are not in a wasteland. You are in the sacred workshop where the self is maintained. You are the nun, holding the potential of your own tomorrow. You are the mummy, being preserved in the natron of silence. You are the wren, a silent, glowing syllable in the dark. You are the sleeping god, whose mouth is temporarily closed. And the great, gentle, cosmic machinery is turning. The sun bark is fighting its way through the serpent apophis in the underworld, far beneath your bed. The gods are chanting the spells that will ensure its victory, and yours. Bees and Taweret stand watch at the corners of your room. The linen of darkness holds you secure. There is nothing for you to do. The ritual is in progress. It has been in progress for 5,000 years. All you must do, is consent to be its subject. Let the breath be the only spell you utter. Let the heartbeat be the only drum in the temple. The adze will come in its own time. Until then, be the held breath. Be the waiting name. Be the perfectly preserved, and utterly dormant, seed. Visual. The pearlescent fog brightens by one nearly imperceptible degree. Then it holds. The change is so slow, over the remaining minutes of the video, that it is more a feeling than a visual event. The foundational singing bowl tone begins to fade, not into silence, but by rising in pitch very very slowly, becoming lighter, until it is like the memory of a sound. Then, true silence. The visual holds on the soft promise of light gray until the screen finally, gently, fades to black at the video's very end. End.